One arm, one mission, one movement. How Gary Guller is making others greater. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, John Kundtz, and today we're doing something a little different. Welcome to Boardroom Bound, the Disruptor special series for not-for-profit leadership, purpose, and giving back. For those who are new to our show, the Disruptor series is your blueprint for groundbreaking innovation. We started the podcast in December of 2022. Our vision was to go beyond conventional wisdom by confronting the status quo and exposing the raw power of disruptive thinking. And today's guest embodies that spirit in every sense of the word. He's the first one-armed person to summit Mount Everest, a world record expedition leader, keynote speaker, author, and the founder of Make Others Greater, a 501c3 not-for-profit, delivering health, education, and hope to some of the most remote communities on the planet. He's also someone I'm proud to call a friend of 16 years, friendship that began over a couple of beers after his keynote speaker at an IBM sales kickoff meeting, ultimately inspiring me to trek in Nepal and visit Morocco. And we'll explore how one man's journey from the world's highest summit led to the creation of a movement that's transforming lives, and how the principles of servant leadership can make any organization or any person greater. This is Gary Guller's second time on the Disruptor podcast. Welcome back to the show, Gary.
Hey, John. Yeah, nice to see you. Nice to be back. And even, I don't even know if you're aware, but 23 years ago at this almost exact time, I was climbing up pretty darn close to the summit of Everest with four of my closest Sherpa friends. And yeah, realizing that dream perhaps was about to come true. And in 23 years, it seemed like a blink. And then you said that we've known each other for 16. That was a quick 16 as well. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me. And yeah, let's get on it.
We've always kept in touch, and I've always been a fan of the stuff you've been doing, and it's very inspirational. Last time we talked, we chatted about more of your, I'll call it your motivational speaking and that kind of work. But today we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk more about the not-for-profits side of your life. But before we get started, you got an amazing backstory. And so just tell us a little bit about your background or education experiences. How did you get here? But just start anywhere you want.
I'll tell you, it's been a freaking, if I can say that, it's been a freaking journey. I started climbing when I was a teenager, and I was one of my first job was basically an apprentice rock climbing guide under the wing of someone else with disadvantaged youth in North Carolina. And then that kind of expanded into sort of mountaineering. And then I moved back to Europe, and then from there over to Nepal. And I always say, once I first heard about the Himalayas and saw the photographs of the Himalayas and the early explorers, I always thought, oh my God, one day I want to actually hopefully just have the opportunity to just go to the country and visit. And of course, then the mountains started to pull me and started to learn more about the Himalayas. And I tell folks all the time, it's like the Himalayas and the mountains is what took me there. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. But I think more so it was the people that kept me going back again and again. And yeah, it's been a great journey, right? It hasn't always been this beautiful photograph like in a North Face or a Patagonia catalog by any stretch. There's bumps. There's been some very close calls. I think you mentioned I was in a terrible climbing accident when I was quite a young man, and that kind of reset me for a while. That was a difficult 4 or 5 years after that. And then I had somebody put their arms around me and said, Gary, look, if you still want to climb mountains, why don't you think about becoming the first guy with one arm to stand on the top of some of the world's highest peaks? And that kind of kicked me into gear, got me off of a bad patch that I was in, and started the whole journey again. And sometimes we have to start again and again. The same with nonprofits, the same with adventure, the same business. You have these moments of highs and then you have these moments of lows, but it's that continuum of just bouncing back and just believing in yourself, getting good support from other people, then believing in you and making things happen, making positive things happen. And generally speaking, I think over the years, when I've stayed consistent with that view, even during the darkest times, good people come out and the light shines and positive things can happen. It's been a journey. It's great to be here. And I could not be more excited. It's 23 years ago, this dream of standing on top of the world came true. And God, when I was laying in basically at the bottom of Orizaba in Mexico in 1986, at that point, there was, that dream was gone. And to make it truly happen and then make others greater over the years to what it is now, yet very small, but we're getting there and moving forward and doing good things in the world. Yeah, again, wanted to ramble on there, but it's been good, John. Thank you.
So I have to jump in or pile on a little bit because it's something about mountains. I don't know what they are. I did most of my mountaineering out in the Sierra Nevadas and Southern California, and growing up as a teenager and college student. And if they draw you in, I don't know if they speak to you subconsciously, but I don't know if it's just the challenge of working with the mountain or the environment, but I don't know. To me, mountain, I wouldn't have become a geologist if it wasn't your mountains. Which would then became an IBM employee for 40 years. But I was out climbing. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in college, and I went up and I climbed Mount San Antonio, which is right outside of Claremont. It's only about a 10,000 foot mountain. And I'm up there one morning on a Saturday, not trying to sure what the heck I'm doing. And I'm sitting there meditating, and all of a sudden I'm looking around, and I was always wanted to be a math science guy. And I'm like, duh, I'm looking right at it. I'm looking at the rocks. I'm looking at the granite. I'm like, boom, I'm going to become a geologist. And so that's what I ended up pursuing as both a undergrad and a graduate. But anyway, before we move on, do tell me though, you mentioned you were the first person with one arm to summit Mount Everest. But before you did that, you had an amazing experience that I think might have led to actually the vision of getting or creating or at least expanding Make Others Greater. So tell us about the expedition you led prior to your summiting of the mountain.
Yeah, I feel very blessed for that. Perhaps I've got to say it's right up there with standing on top of the world. That was a very long dream, but yeah, I was fortunate. I built that whole expedition from the ground up, and not just, it wasn't ever really just about this guy with one arm standing on top of the world. We picked the largest cross disability, and I think the most diverse team, people from all walks of life. Some had never been on a camping trip before. Some had never been out of their state, out of the country before. And with varying degrees of disabilities, from paraplegic, quadriplegic, hearing impaired, visually impaired, other amputees. I had a Sherpa with a missing right arm, another Sherpa with a missing left leg, both bitten by the cobra in the village. And in the village, when you get bitten by a cobra, it's a very quick amputation. There's no like taking your time on that whole gig. So they're part of that as well. At any given moment, we had 300 or 400 local people working on behalf of this expedition. But that's when I just saw in a country as challenged, let's say, sometimes as Nepal is, the people came out and people joined the expedition and supported at various levels, from the climbing Sherpa down to the head porter, down to the cook, down to the young kid of 8 years old that wanted to be part of what was going on to carry the grass that fed the yak. And my job as a leader was to allow them to really shine in the capacity that they were or part of the expedition, from the head climbing Sherpa to the person in charge of all the porters, to each individual porter themselves, even down to that 8-year-old kid that had probably the worst job of the whole expedition. All he had to do was carry grass, but he had to know that fundamentally he was so important to the success of this expedition, because if that grass didn't make it to the next camp, then our yak that was carrying loads as well couldn't eat. Therefore, the whole expedition's over. So it didn't take me long to figure out, hey, wake up 5 or 10 minutes a little bit earlier and go every few days and sit down with this young kid and maybe give him some hot chocolate, give him some tea, or maybe put $1 or $2 in his pocket and just kind of let him know that I appreciated him and what he was doing. But on that day, God, 23 years ago, what, 6 weeks prior, on this team fell down, walked, bled, hugged, cried, used the wheelchair, got out of the wheelchair at Mount Everest Base Camp. It was probably one of the most just beautiful memories of my entire life. Just imagine, just for a second, folks, a lot of people in this expedition have been told no their entire life, either from birth or after their injury. Just no, you can't. No, it's not possible. And we said, yes, together it is possible. We can do this together. And if we appreciate other, have some understanding, have some compassion, open up our minds, open up our ears, open up our hearts, then I think that is very possible. And many people thought, oh, this was just crazy, absolutely nuts. And fair enough, I've been called worse for sure, but we succeeded and we did extremely well. So that just kind of started the whole story. And to get really to the answer to your question, then when I was fortunate enough to stand on top of the world, it was near the day that Sir Edmund and Tenzing Norgay, 50 years prior, stood in the exact same spot. And you got to remember, this was 2003. A lot has changed in the Himalayas, on Everest in particular, since then, right? But I'm there at the summit with 4 of my closest Sherpa friends who had never been on the summit of Mount Everest, the other 2 by different routes, and no one else. We had no one from Camp 4, no one all the way back to Camp 4 that we had to even engage with. It was just us on the mountain. The weather was pretty darn good. And when I eventually got down to base camp, thank goodness, and back to Kathmandu, there's a big celebration. There's this 50-year anniversary of the first ascent of Mount Everest, and Sir Edmund was there, and Tenzing Norgay's son was there, Reinhold Messner was there. There were just all these famous people that were there, and I was fortunate enough to be part of that because it was the year, of course. And there's a gentleman, a Sherpa, gave a small presentation toward the end of that ceremony, and he said that his father always told him it's okay to be successful, it's okay to have things in terms of some money and maybe a nice house, car, whatever. He said, but my father used to tell me if I could concentrate how I could think about others and make them feel better or make them greater, then I'm probably going to win in the world of just kindness. And that is how Make Others Greater, the idea got started. Those words, make others greater, from somebody that was sharing a story about what his father told him. And I never actually ever forgot that. A number of years later, we officially launched to makeothersgreater.org. Of course, that was the name I just had to, I had to go with. So yeah, it's been a journey, but we're 9, almost 10 years into it now. We started it from the ground up. We got through the pandemic. We have some good supporters. We're not huge. We're not fancy. 98% of any dollar we receive goes straight to source. I work with people. I work with partners that I have primarily in Nepal at the moment, but we're doing good and we're happy. We're looking forward to the coming years to expand more.
Cool. Yeah. We want to get into that in a second, but I do, as a side note, there's a couple of great video clips that we included in our first podcast about your trek up to Everest Base Camp with the group. And of course, I think you wrote a book about it as well. And we will include those links in the show notes if anybody's interested in it. It is an amazing, compelling, and emotional story, just watching the 3-minute or so video clip that's out there. But anyway, so I'm taking it that was the pivotal moment that allowed you to say, hey, there's a need and it's really something I need to get involved in. Let me ask another question though. So let's switch. So that's great backstory. And we'll talk more about how we can help you grow your foundation and your not-for-profit and some of the direct needs. But I've done my due diligence on the not-for-profit side of your business, and you are correct. This is an organization that there's very little SG&A or overhead costs. Almost all the money goes directly. The nice thing about stuff like you're doing is $1 or a rupee goes a long way in Nepal.
It does.
A Starbucks cup of coffee here, it can buy a lot of stuff in Nepal, pencils, paper, shoes, coats, stuff like that. But anyway, let's talk about let's turn this back onto maybe the listening audience. So let's say, or whether someone's leading a company or sitting on a not-for-profit board, or just simply looking to give back in a more meaningful way, what is the one mindset shift that you believe would change how they lead, they give, or just show up for others?
And you've heard me say this before, John. To be very direct, get off the me train and get on the we train in terms of the people that you're doing business with, having the same goals, the same focus, trying to do the right thing, of course, for the organization, but for the world as well. And I've just found, and that's just been my belief, when you get a good group of people around you and you're all kind of thinking about the bigger picture, what can we accomplish together? What can we do together? How can we better understand how to figure out what the need is and work directly with folks, perhaps from my perspective, from making this perspective in the country, find out what they need, go there and ask or send people that work with you to particular areas, say, hey, what do you guys really need? Not what we think you need from sitting over here in California or Oregon or New York or wherever. What is really needed there? Is the down jacket for some of the kids to use in the wintertime? Is it 1,500 meters of pipe to improve the water supply? Or is it basic shoes, or is it sandals, or an umbrella for the monsoon season, or things like Band-Aids, or as you said earlier, John, things like pencils, papers, rucksacks, socks, and areas and the remote communities. Sometimes these very basic things that we just have dozens of, they may have one or two pairs, if that. So it's really just the communication. I think it's being open. I think it's getting on this sort of what we do together. What can we bring individually to a table to collectively really try to make a positive difference with whatever we're trying to achieve. So that's kind of how I go with it. It seems like it works. And I think the world probably, honestly, would be a lot better off if more people kind of started thinking that way.
I agree 1,000%. One thing I noticed when I was in Nepal, first of all, the people are fantastic. They're just, I don't know, they're hard workers. They live on nothing. Either they don't know what they don't know, but at the same time, they're super willing to help. We were trekking on the Annapurna trek, and we'd go by a school. They invite us in. We'd go check it out. We'd give them $20 US. And so they were super appreciative. In the Sherpa community, our Sherpas were, man, there's that you could have a whole other discussion on Sherpas at some point in time. I think we actually did have a good discussion on that in our first show. But I agree. It's part of why I focused my disruptor theme more, pivoting it more. I'm trying to call what I call boardroom bound. That's an IBM. I spent 40 years there, roughly. I spent probably 36 years of it working with not-for-profits on boards and giving back to the community. And it was the IBM DNA. They said, you probably saw this because you did a lot of work for us on our keynotes and some of the public speaking that you did. Literally the third month of an employee, and I'm wet behind the ears, have no idea what I'm doing. I'm 26 years old. And they go, okay, so how you get involved in the community? We should get you involved in the board work. And that's, my DNA grew up around that. And now that I'm essentially retired from corporate, my goal is to really, same thing. How can we focus on the we's of the world and help people, even locally? Most of us have been pretty privileged growing up, and certainly IBM was very good to me. And now it's like, how can we get back? And it doesn't take a lot, as you just articulated.
It doesn't. And I just want to point out one thing you said just about the people of Nepal, and I think in other parts of the world as well. I like to think that we're more alike around the world than we are different. I think there are people out there that want to point out the major differences more than I think they, personally speaking, I think that they should. I think we're more alike with just about anywhere I've traveled in the world. People just want to have a good life. They want to feed their family. They want to have people around the table at whatever level and just enjoy and have some peace and some harmony, right? But what you're saying about, especially about the Nepali, what really drew me keep going back to Nepal was if you gave them 20 or if you gave them 5, if they believe that you're giving what you could from your heart, and then they took it, not necessarily the amount, they took it also in their heart. And I think that's what's just amazing. You're right. They're hardworking. They have to live in the present. Sometimes they're living just day by day, but they appreciate kindness and compassion and generosity. And if you show them your heart, they will definitely, they will show you theirs. And that's just, it makes me just tingle just thinking about it, because my God, right? If we could just do more of that in the world, just for a moment, if it's 5 seconds a day or 15 minutes a day, when you're out and about in public, when you're on the subway, when you're in the airplane, whatever, it doesn't take just a second to change somebody's attitude, perhaps, or feeling or emotion for the whole day, which then they then move that on to other people. Then all of a sudden now you've got this force. It's just a good force that's moving around.
That's such a great point. You know, it's funny. I had the privilege last November to take a trip to Morocco, which I know you spent some time on that side of the world as well. And we took a trip out into the desert, and we spent a couple of hours with a nomad family. And it's same thing. They live in tents and made out of camel hair, and there's no furniture. And they took us into, I'll call it their living room tent, where they had a little fire, and they served us tea, and we sat down. We spent probably an hour with them or more. Their kids were there. They showed us their animals, and they all had the same thing. They just want to provide a good life for their family, give them basic shelter, food, and education. And and they were fantastic. They were so open. And here we are, a bunch of dumb Americans, and we sat on in their little area, but it was good, and it was no different from the people we would meet in the little tea houses up in the mountains in Nepal as well. So anyway,
yeah, it's just kind of just go with you on that for a second. It's if you're just thinking about it, you're meeting somebody very early on, you've known them for a very short amount of time, and if you really think about it, and then they're welcoming you into their house, right? So you're going down the trail, or you're in the Sahara, or up in the mountains in Morocco, and they from their heart, there's no angle there, right? They really want you to come in and experience their life just for a short amount of time. And there's a lot of just satisfaction for everybody when that happens, because that's just reminds me, it's like kind of how small we are in this massive universe that is beyond me, right? But those little moments in time where it's like this little blip on the radar, to where it's just life changing. It's just absolutely life changing.
it is. It absolutely is. And it, as you said, you realize that you're from worlds apart, but at the same time, we have basically the same desires, same needs.
Yes.
So it's pretty cool. And I really think if people can get out and see that, or research it and get out of their little bubbles in their communities, they'll quickly realize how we're, like you said, we're really different, but at the same time, we're very similar. Anyway, Gary, you've summited Everest. You've led world record expeditions. You now build a global humanitarian movement, all with one arm, and a philosophy that puts others first. What does the future of Make Others Greater look like, and how can people listening today be part?
A great question. And just a few weeks ago, we brought in a medical team in Kathmandu, and along with that, we brought in more than 50 children without parents, ranging from 18 months to got over 16. And some of them had never, ever seen a doctor. So the doctor and the team of nurses provided an annual exam, a nourishment check. I think they did some blood work with some of them, checked them all out. A great way to get involved. If you want almost in real time what we're actually doing at the present moment, it's probably quicker and it's more cost effective for us. Because as John was saying earlier, and I've said before, look, we're not huge, we're not fancy, we have no salaries. We try to cover all the costs. in the best possible way that we can. So I tend to use Instagram for putting sort of live updates, actually what we're doing, what we're thinking about, what we achieve, and showing video clips or images of that actually really truly happening. So that's a quick way to find out, okay, what did we do last week? What did we do last month? And I probably will mention, hey, next month we're looking at this, but you can go back over the last couple of years and see everything that we've achieved with a lot of really great people that's been on board, along with the people that kind of support us financially as well. The makeothersgreater.org, the website, of course, which any contribution, again, as John was saying, goes quite a long way. Like I said, I think it's right around 97, 98%. The other 2 or 3% is basically just bank fees and whatever, donation, credit card charges. But pretty much everything goes direct to source. And I work very, very closely with a very good team that I have in Nepal and also dotted around the world that I know very well. And I know if I say, I need you to go to this village, I need you to find out what is needed quickly that we can do as an organization, that they provide really good information for me. So please, follow us on Instagram, Make Others Greater, or go to the website, which, by the way, in the coming weeks, that's going to be revamped. We're going to give it a bit of a facelift. I've got somebody that's in that world that's going to spend some time with me to make it just more media, more in depth, which we're excited about that. And just look and see. Like I said, we don't ask for a lot. $20, $50, $100. Some people are generous and they give quite a bit more, but we put it to use pretty quickly. We don't sit on a whole lot of anything. We make it happen. And when I get a call or I get an email and say, hey, like I said, this pipe, we need the villagers and the kids are getting sick in the villages, and the pipe that's moving the water from the top of the mountains no longer clean, hasn't been changed in over 20 years. What can we do? And within a few weeks, we had almost 1,500 meters up there, and the village got involved. The kids, everybody got involved, reinstalling this new pipe from the very top of the source, the top of the mountain where the water was coming from. And it's still going, everybody's definitely feeling better. So it's like these little things, sometimes directly, we can't see them like out our front door here in America or Europe, but it's just knowing that on a very small scale, anyone can make a positive difference. And I've said this 1,000 times, for one person, one child at a time. And that's all we're asking. We're not asking for any big long-term commitment, a big financial hit, just something, because the monsoon's coming soon. We have a lot of kids that need rain jackets, umbrellas, some sandals, so their little feet don't get all messed up, walk around in the water. Then all of a sudden, the autumn season will come and school season will start again. And that's where we like to supply pencils, books, knapsacks, warm clothes. They can hike to school and carry their books, and then we try to reuse those again next year for the younger kids coming up. So just keep in touch, reach out to me personally, reach out to really anyone. But follow us on Instagram or just have a peek at the website. But Instagram it's definitely the easiest way to see exactly what we're doing at any given moment in time. I try to keep that updated as much as I possibly can. So yes, it's appreciated.
Awesome. So of course, we'll include all of those links to the various socials and websites in the show notes, plus a couple maybe other surprises that Gary sent me the other night that were amazing. The picture of the video of the school kids in their uniforms laying the pipe was so exciting. It took me a while to figure out what they were doing, but it was really amazing. And some of the pictures of some of the stuff you sent them is incredible. It's aspartame because I have donated to your organization. And every time I do, you send me a picture of here's what we're working on. And it is really, for a sort of a bootstrapped organization, it does a lot of good.
Yeah.
But anyway, this has been an amazingly rich conversation, Gary, and I really appreciate it. And I hope the folks that are listening will take some time to dig into what you're doing in a little more detail. Obviously, if they need a keynote speaker, a motivational speaker, that helps also fund this charity as well.
Yes, it surely does help for sure. I've never had kids, and I'm going to say this in a very jokey way. My friend Nimadawa Sherpa used to say to me, he's, Gary, money come in one way, it go out maybe 50 different ways. And I'm like, okay, now I understand that, right? So sometimes a keynote speaker helps me distribute even some more money to the children I don't have, but obviously I'm very much connected to through just various good people around that tell them what's needed. So yeah, good stuff.
Sounds awesome. All right. I'm not sure you say anything more, but before we wrap it up, I always like to give the guest the last words. So if there's anything you'd like to say at party, the floor is yours.
Oh, right on. No, I appreciate that. Just go back where we were talking about earlier about just, follow us on Instagram. It's Make Others Greater, very easy to find. And you'll see the images of the kids and the smiles and all the good things that we're doing. And of course, I've said it a million times, none of it could happen if it wasn't for our supporters in many different ways. And it's one child, one person at a time. We just do our level best. And that's really what we do. We do our level best to make a positive difference to those perhaps that don't have access sometimes to very basic things: Band-Aid, pencils, shoes, umbrellas, medicine. We just do our level best, and any support that you can move in our direction would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, again, I appreciate it, John. I appreciate everyone listening, and hopefully we'll see you around.
It's always great to talk to you, bud. And we'll keep this discussion going. Anyway, so again, I'm John Kundtz. Thanks for joining us in this boardroom bound edition of the Disruptor podcast. Have a great day. Namaste.
Namaste.